Good afternoon and welcome. It's beautiful to be in your company and in the company of the bees. So in the Vedic tradition, we usually begin with an invocation. So you are welcome to just listen, close your eyes if you feel like it. Tasye dishe satatamanjaliresha arye prakshipyate mukharito madhupe budhaischa jagarti yatra bhagavan guru chakravarti vishvodaya pralayanataka nitya sakshi. The wise beings, this poem says, the wise beings always offer handfuls of flowers humming with bees in the direction of Bhagavan, of the transcendent Lord. He is the eternal witness of the drama of the arising and subsiding of the universe. One afternoon, I went to my room to sit quietly. I heard a humming sound. It became quite loud, actually. And the whole room seemed to be vibrating. There was nothing in the room, so I opened the curtains. And outside my window, a huge beehive was forming. Now, I was living in the Indian countryside, in an ashram. And the forest bees love to come to the flowers in our ashram gardens and gather the nectar. And the eaves of the windows became one of their favorite places to create hives. So, with the windows closed very, very tightly, and trying not to turn on the light too much, I would sit there and listen to this humming, and it was like a meditation in itself. And as I listened to it, I started thinking about some of the poetry of the Indian saints where they had written about bees and honey. And one that came to mind immediately was one that my guru liked very much. It's by a young yogi by the name of Jnaneshwar from the 13th century. And he makes this beautiful metaphor between bees and the mind. The song says, Runuzunu runuzunu re brahmara, runuzunu runuzunu re brahmara, sanditu avaguna re brahmara, charana kamala dhadu re brahmara, bhogitu nishchalu re brahmara, runuzunu runuzunu re brahmara. Oh, my dear mind, you are like a buzzing bee, flitting here and there, searching for nectar. Why don't you give up this incessant restlessness and settle in the lotus of your heart? Because there you can enjoy the nectar of bliss incessantly. In South India, there's a famous temple called Srisailam. Some of you may have heard of it. And the goddess whose energy empowers this pilgrimage place is known as Brahmari Devi, the goddess of the bees. She is said to have protected a kingdom from invaders with her swarms of bees. And she is known to protect the temple and the yogis who meditate in that region with the power of her bees. And interestingly, as the yogis go deep in meditation, one of the experiences that can arise is that they begin to hear the subtle music of the heart. And one of the forms this takes is of the humming of swarms of bees. And so yogis become completely absorbed in this sound. And when they emerge from meditation, they're filled with sweetness and bliss. So in the Vedic tradition, which is the tradition from which Ayurveda emerged, honey is given a very important place in its rituals, in its texts, and in its living practice. The Vedas sing of honey as the nectar of the sun. This isn't just because it's a golden color, but it's part of a larger reflection on the way bees gather their nectar from flowers, and these flowers are infused with the energy of the sun, and the sun itself being a source of healing and life. So it's part of this larger reflection. And also, it's a reflection on how the essence, the very best of a plant, goes into its flowers, and the best of the flower goes into the pollen. And the bees gather this best part. They digest it through their own being and place it seal it in these honeycombs. So they're sealing in the best of the best of the best. It's really quite miraculous, and I tend to think that even in ancient times, the sages wanted people to be sure that they weren't just treating honey like a commodity, something buy two, get one free, so to speak. But that they were really treating it like gold. Now the Vedas speak about two twins called the Ashwini Kumars, and they are said to be the physicians of the devas, of the celestial beings. And they also bring healing to the people in this world. Their medicine is honey. And with it, they are able to cure not only physical ailments, but ailments of the mind and of the spirit. The Ashwinis ride on the rays of the sun. And their symbols are the sun, honey, and bliss. And with this honey, they're able not only to destroy diseases, but to bring about rejuvenation and longevity, and to infuse those who receive it with bliss. Now, you might be already wondering exactly what this has to do with Ayurvedic medicine and home remedies that use honey. You see, the mystical and this poetic knowledge of the Vedic tradition and the very precise and logical knowledge that is an important aspect of Ayurveda. These two actually inform each other in very practical and also subtle ways. And Ayurveda, in fact, embraces these seemingly two bodies of knowledge as one. Again, in not only a mystical way, but also in very practical ways. For a traditional Vaidya, or practitioner of Ayurveda, they hold this Vedic knowledge in their awareness when they are meeting people and helping them to regain their health. Now, when they prescribe honey for somebody, they may not give a long talk about the Ashwini Kumars and quote long verses from the Vedas, but it's in their awareness as they look at the person as a whole and consider how to bring healing on every level of their being. So these Vaidyas, these Ayurvedic practitioners, traditionally, they have a relationship with honey. They don't just have lots of technical knowledge about its properties and uses and mix it with that and make something happen. It's a relationship. Similarly, in traditional homes in India, the grandmother was often the one who was responsible for keeping the family healthy. And these traditional grandmothers also held a lot of this Vedic knowledge, the stories, the analogies, the poetry, in their awareness. And that was in their mind as they took these simple, seemingly simple items from their kitchen and helped people in the family, to stay well. And so at Vedika, we really strive to keep this multifaceted knowledge of the traditional Vaidyas, what they brought to their practice, and which the grandmothers brought to their healing in the homes. Okay, this might sound like a little bit of a stretch so far. So let me tell you a story that kind of brings these ideas together. In the era of the Upanishads, there was a sage by the name of Dhaumya. He was a sage of the Vedas, and he lived in the forest with students who were studying the Vedas with him. Now, he had a very bright student called Upamanyu, and he saw a lot of potential in this boy. But he also saw that he had a problem that was holding him back from going really deep in his studies. And that was that he loved to keep eating. He and food had this magnetic relationship with each other. So the Guru called him one day and said, "Tell me, son, what is it that you eat?" He respectfully said, "Sir, I go to, like the other students, I go to the village and I beg alms from various homes, and I eat that." Guru said, "Very good. Tomorrow you bring that and offer it to me first." The student did so. And his Guru proceeded to eat most of that food as his own meal. He gave Upamanyu just a little bit. This is actually quite a long story, but to condense it. The next week he noticed the boy is not as chubby as ever. "What are you eating?" "Oh, sir, I go back a second time to beg alms." The Guru said, "You can't do that. You're depriving these people of the food for their families." Still nothing changed. "What are you doing now?" "Sir, I just drink some milk from the cows that I'm tending," because his seva in the ashram was to take the cows to the forest and look after them. So he said, "You can't do that. You're depriving the calves of their mother's milk." But this boy was desperate. He was sitting in the forest. All he could think about was food. And he remembered that there are these plants, and when you break the stems, this white sap starts oozing out. So he found plants like that, one after the next, and he was pretending in his mind that this is cream. He was really quite enjoying it. And he noticed he started kind of blinking and his vision was getting a bit blurry. His eyes felt like they were getting swollen. What he didn't know that this plant he was eating, called arka, is actually highly poisonous. And after a little while, the boy couldn't see at all. And he was chastising himself. What have I done? He was trying to go back to the ashram, but he couldn't find his way, and he fell into an abandoned well, and he couldn't get out. In the evening, the cows went home on their own. The Guru said, "Something's happened to this boy." He called the other students. They went to the forest, calling his name. Eventually, they found him. He explained what happened, and they took him back to the ashram, and his Guru said, "Son, you are completely blind. There's only one way to cure this. You have to pray to the Ashwini Kumars, the celestial physicians. Only they can cure you." So this boy, with great sincerity and with great focus, he recited these prayers and he prayed to the Ashwini Kumars. Finally, they appeared before him. They were dazzling like the sun. And they held something out to him. It was some food item that was drenched in honey. And they said, "Upamanyu, we have heard your prayers. Eat this, and your eyesight will be restored." Now, Upamanyu had grown in knowledge while he was going through all these adventures. He said, "Thank you so much, but first I have to offer it to my Guru. I haven't been doing well with things that I don't offer." And they tried to kind of trick him. He would say, "Oh, no, it's fine, you don't have to worry." He said, "No, I must offer it to my Gurus first." Fortunately, Dhaumya appeared right at that moment, and he gave his blessing. He said, "Yes, Upamanyu, take this prasad and be cured." And as he ate this honey-drenched prasad, slowly his eyes became normal again, and his vision was restored. And not only that, the Ashwini Kumars said to him, "Along with this, you've been granted longevity. you'll live a strong, robust life. And his guru said, ah yes, and there's one more prasad that goes with this. Prasad is a blessed gift. And one more boon of this is that you will be granted a remarkably strong memory. Anything you hear once, you'll be able to remember it. They call it, you will become an ekapati. So with this, Upamanyu became, the student who could memorize all 4 Vedas and all of the texts that go with it. And he went on to become a sage in his own right. Now, there are 4 things that I think about in relationship with honey and this story. And these are 4 things that I actually use in my daily life. The first is that there's an important relationship between honey and the eyes. For example, one of the things Ayurveda speaks about, as Ambika was saying, it's about regenerative and proactive action. So, as some of you may know, once you reach the age of 40, sometimes the eyes start diminishing in power and you start getting reading glasses. Ayurveda says once you reach the age of 40, every night you should take a teaspoon of honey with a quarter of a teaspoon of triphala, and that will keep the eyesight strong. Now, several years ago, I was in that situation of reading with the reading glasses, and I thought, let me give this a try. I must say, within 1 month, I stopped reaching for the reading glasses very often. Within 3 months, I stopped reaching for them at all, and I don't use them to this day. And so, as I think about this, and that's in spite of lots of reading, lots of iPad, I just haven't had to use reading glasses again. And so as I think about this, I understand that this story of Upamanyu is not just a metaphor. They were talking about honey really has this curative power, this power with the eyes. So the second point is longevity. Upamanyu was blessed with a long and healthy life as a result of eating this divine honey. Now in Ayurveda, as you'll hear from Tracy soon, honey is considered like a tonic. It has a very restorative, rejuvenative quality to it. And I like to have Ayurvedic tonics like Chyawanprash every morning. You may have heard of it. When I read the labels, I love to come to the part in the list of ingredients, forest honey. It's one of the important ingredients in this rejuvenative tonic. The third thing is the association of honey and memory. Nowadays there are a lot of studies that you can read in labs. They're trying to see the correlation. Is honey a memory booster? And they're looking at honey. The bees themselves seem to have an extraordinary honey. Maybe that an extraordinary memory. Perhaps that means that honey also will promote memory. And as I think about, on one hand, there's this ancient story of the student eats the honey, is blessed with extraordinary memory. On the other hand, today, there's people in labs trying to see if honey promotes memory. In between that, there are a couple of thousand years of Ayurvedic practitioners, of Vaidyas and grandmothers, giving people honey, knowing very well that it's so beneficial to the mind. The fourth point that I wanted to make was this association between honey and the sun. See, honey, and you'll hear more about this too from Tracy, honey is not just sugar. It has very different properties from sugar. And one of them is that honey tends to create, or the most commonly available types of honey anyway, tend to create warmth in the body, whereas sugar tends to be cooling. And I often think of this when, if you were here last month, you might have heard about spring remedies using honey, when you're suffering from all those spring phlegmy conditions. And since I'm quite good at suffering from those conditions, I like to I keep my honey very close, shall we say. And I like to experience that warmth that combines so beautifully with the warming spices that help these conditions. So another way that honey is used in the Vedic tradition is in the rituals. And one of the offerings that you'll see very commonly that's used both as prasad and to wash the sacred images is called panchamrit, which literally means the 5 nectars: milk, yogurt, ghee, jaggery, and honey. Now these substances each have a very important role to play in Ayurveda, but that's a discussion for another day. Here, I'd like to just highlight what the sages have said about the symbolic role of honey in this group of 5 nectars. The sages explain that honey here represents sweet speech and unity. And what they mean by unity is this sense of the strength of community and of the interconnectedness of all life. And this, as you know now, is because the honey, the bees, it takes thousands of bees and hundreds of flowers to create this spoonful of honey that we enjoy so much. And also, even a spoonful of honey, you know, it has this lovely sticky quality to it, and it holds together everything it touches, like a community being held together. In the Brihadaranyaka Upanishad, there's a beautiful meditation on this interconnectedness of all life, using honey as a metaphor. It says, "The earth is honey for all beings, and all beings are honey for this earth. The intelligent, immortal being, the soul of this earth, is the intelligent, immortal being who is the soul of each individual. Each is honey to the other. These 4 are all in essence one Brahman, the inner sense of all, the inner self of all. And this knowledge of this underlying unity is the means of immortality, the means of becoming one with everything." The sage continues with many examples. And, you know, this week I was reading this chapter of the Upanishads again and reflecting on all this poetry about honey. And something very interesting happened that heightened my personal experience of this interconnectedness of all life. We went out into our garden, you know, on the other side of the Berkeley Hills, around sunset, and there was this hum, and things were vibrating. And right there in our little pear tree, a swarm of bees had come, and they were beginning, it appeared, to be creating a hive. And we had never seen a swarm of bees in our garden before. And so we were watching them with very respectful interest. And as the night went on, we were delighting in it and also wondering how we were all going to live in harmony with each other. But being full of this poetry, I thought, there's definitely a way. And the next afternoon, like a cloud, the bees all flew off. One of the local beekeepers who is the source of the honey that we have here, he explained to me, he said, the swarms are often looking for a new hive, and they must have found your garden to be a safe, harmonious place, and they stopped there, and then they moved on to the next place they would search. But I must say, whatever the explanation was, the synchronicity of their visit absolutely stunned me. It really felt like a blessing and like an affirmation that the honey and bees really do have this message of the interconnectedness of all life for us. And that honey is indeed sacred medicine. Now the Vedic sages invite us actually to take this one step further. They invite us not only to taste the honey and benefit from its medicinal qualities, they invite us to become the sweetness and the healing presence of honey. One of the Vedic sages said, he offers this prayer to the Mother Earth. He said, I will think only thoughts that are like honey, sweet and beneficial. I will let this healing sweetness fill all my actions. I will select only sweet and sacred things to offer in worship. I will speak in a way that is sweet like honey, whether I'm speaking with the gods, with people, or any and all of the creatures of this earth. May the divine forces protect me from slipping in this intention, this vow of mine, and make my speech graceful and uplifting. May even our ancestors be pleased hearing my honey-like speech. Now the sage could have used many different synonyms for sweetness. Sanskrit language has so many. But he chose the word for honey, madhu, to show that the intention is not just a kind of syrupy sweet speech, but speech that has a healing sweetness. Speech that creates unity and community, and speech that honors the interconnectedness of all life. Prithvi matar mama higunsi madhu vanishye madhu vakshami madhu vadishyami madhumatim devebhyo vachamudhyasagum shushrusheya manushyebhyastam madeva avantu shobhaye pitaram no numadantu. So, let's form a relationship with honey as we discover more and more about it. Let's reflect on honey as much more than a useful commodity, a good little home medicine, but as the nectar of the sun, as the sweet medicine of the celestial physicians. And as we taste honey, let's become that healing sweetness. Thank you.